This recording is a general overview of the hormonal regulation of reproduction in both males and females. So what we have is at puberty, and I have to make the distinction, something happens at puberty. Some internal and environmental stimuli somehow results in these impulses, nervous impulses, to the hypothalamus, which I've abbreviated here. And that hypothalamus produces gonadotropin releasing hormone, which is a tropic hormone. This hormone then targets the anterior pituitary gland, and it results in secretion of both luteinizing hormone, which is LH, as well as FSH. Now, what happened at puberty that started all this, I can't explain that to you. Just why does puberty happen in some people at 10? Why does it happen at 15 in some people? Couldn't help you on that one. So at puberty, you're going to start having the release of gonadotropin releasing hormone, which then stimulates the secretion of luteinizing hormone and FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. And generally, the luteinizing hormone targets endocrine cells. We're going to be very general because we're doing males and females together. So these endocrine cells are then going to release various hormones, and we'll be more specific later. So you're going to have your male hormones, your female hormones. Now these hormones will regulate the secretion of both gonadotropin releasing hormone as well as LH because it's subject to negative feedback inhibition. But you'll notice that this does say long loop feedback, positive or negative. In response to regards to, I should say, females, there's a short period of time in which the production of some of the hormones is actually regulated by positive feedback inhibition. So I have to make that known. So they will regulate LH as well as gonadotropin releasing hormone. Now FSH targets various cells, and we'll go over those a little bit more in depth, is they result in the production of gametes. So think of follicle as the gametes. So FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. It's going to stimulate development of the gametes. Now, you'll notice that the LH also, you'll see the arrow is going to the gametes. Well, LH also will play a role in gamete production, specifically in the female. So we'll talk about that later. But you'll notice on the picture, you'll notice we have different components of reflexes. You have a stimulus, you have your integration centers, which you see here, various integration centers are involved. You have your efferent pathway, which involves hormones, and you have your various effectors, and we've been very general in our effectors there, and we'll have a certain response, either gamete production. That's really primarily what we want, is we want production of the gametes. So this is very general. Now, I want to show you is some of the hormones that will be involved in the male and female reproductive system. And the females, we're going to be looking at progesterone and beta estradiol. And I want you to bring your attention to in the pathways of steroid hormones, because these are steroid hormones. You'll notice right here, progesterone is actually an intermediate for a number of different hormones, and including testosterone and beta estradiol. But these are going to be the two main hormones that we'll talk about in the female. And in the male, we'll specifically be talking about testosterone and DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone. Now, again, what you'll notice is, now what I've done is I purposely have not written names of hormones here because that just confuses you. But there's a number of steps involved in the production of steroid hormones. Now over here, what you notice here, this is not taking place in the the gonads. Now, steroidogenesis, or I should say the production of these hormones that we'll be talking about, will be taking place within the testes of the male and the ovaries of the female. The production of the mineralocorticoid aldosterone and the production of the glucocorticoid cortisol does not take place in the ovaries or testes. Okay, so I just want to make you know about that. However, we can, you'll notice that we do have some similar intermediate steps in the production of aldosterone and cortisol, as well as these sex hormones. Now I want to tell you that the hormone right here is DHEA, and this one here is androstenedione. So these we had mentioned when we did the adrenal glands, specifically within the zona reticularis of the adrenal cortex, produce those two androgens. Those are actually intermediates in the production of testosterone. Now, testosterone, a lot of that testosterone that's made in the males, some of it's going to be converted to dihydrotestosterone using this enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, and that's a hormone to remember. So it's important that you know that the name of that hormone. So some of the effects that we see in the male is actually because of DHT. So in peripheral organs, we'll convert some of that testosterone to DHT. Now, testosterone, you notice, is an intermediate in the production of beta-estradiol. Well, that's converted to beta-estradiol in the female by an enzyme called aromatase. Okay, so that's an important enzyme to remember too. So the women, we can produce testosterone, but the majority of it is converted to beta-estradiol using aromatase. In the male, some testosterone is converted to beta-estradiol using aromatase, and that specifically will be taking place in things like adipose tissue. And the beta-estradiol is actually needed in the male in regards to the closure of epiphyseal plates in bone. So men, it's also important in males, but they don't produce nearly the amount that we do. Now, all of these hormones I had mentioned are steroid hormones. So they have the central nucleus that you see right here, which is derived from cholesterol. All steroid hormones are lipophilic, or we could say they are hydrophobic or nonpolar. They can easily cross cell membranes. However, because they're nonpolar, majority of them are actually transported in the blood by binding proteins. But once they reach their target, they easily cross the membranes. Their receptors are located within the cell. They're intracellular receptors. Their primary actions were going to be on altering gene transcription. Their effects are longer lasting, but they're not immediate because it takes time to alter gene transcription. One of the things I do want to mention is in the females, the beta-estradiol is the major estrogen. Estrogen is a very general term. Literally means generate estrus. So think of estrus is actually when you think about dogs and other animals when they go into heat, because it means it generates heat. But beta-estradiol is the predominant estrogen in a non-pregnant female. In a woman who is pregnant, the main estrogen is estriol. And after menopause, the major estrogen is actually called estrone. This one here is the most potent estrogen, is beta-estradiol. We'll talk about the effects of beta-estradiol as well as progesterone in later recordings. So this is just serves as a basic introduction to steroidogenic pathways and the hormones that we'll talk about in the males as well as the females.